Buddy, hello. Buddy, hello. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let me just see if I can get Heather. Helen. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Welcome, everybody.
Okay, welcome. Thanks.
Welcome. Okay, we'll get started in just a few minutes.
All right. Okay. Okay, how do we do this? Right.
Not been able to get in touch with either Helen or Thomas. Any chance, buddy, you haven't heard from either of them, have you?
No, I haven't. No, unfortunately.
Get started in maybe just 1 minute or so.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go with. All right. Let's see. Okay.
Okay, well, I think we are at time, so why don't we go ahead and get started. Let me just see if we've got a Helen. Don't have a Helen. Okay, well, why don't we just go ahead and get started? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the, let me just make sure that we're recording. Good, Jill. So welcome to the May meeting of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. I'm Karthik Balasubramanian, chair of the council, and we can go ahead and get started with some introductions. Maybe we are waiting on a few folks on our end, but maybe I'll pass it over first to Buddy, who's the other council member present.
Yes, okay.
And then we can go yeah, go for it. Go for it, Buddy.
Okay, thank you. Buddy Moore, a member of the MAAC. I'm also the outreach coordinator for the Bernice Fontenot Senior Wellness Center. And while I have the floor, I'd like to thank Zachary for coming out and meeting with the Prevention of Blindness Society on Friday. They checked out an intersection that is sort of troublesome close to the Prevention of Blindness Society headquarters. So Zachary is going to see what can be done about that particular intersection. So thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Buddy.
And also, Buddy, if you would like, if you ever want to make a resolution about something that's like, hey, I think we should have this particular treatment, or this is unsafe, this particular intersection is of concern, we can definitely do that. That will just take 1 minute or so. So, so yeah, so just something to put out there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So then, so Buddy, we don't have Helen. Let me try to give her a call one more time. But before that, or kind of as I'm doing that, maybe Zach, would you mind introducing yourself and then passing it on to other folks?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith, Equity and Accessibility Program Analyst with the District Department of Transportation, also liaison to the MAAC. And I will pass it to Nana Bailey-Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, my light's off. I knew Zach was going to pass it. So good evening. My name is Nana Bailey-Thomas, and I am the Chief Transportation Equity and Inclusion Officer for the District Department of Transportation. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great.
Nana, would you mind passing it to someone else?
That was the instruction. I'm sorry. I'm going to pass it to Elaine.
Hi,
sorry.
I think Eileen, do you mean
Eileen?
me?
I'm sorry, Eileen.
That's okay. It's all right. I'm Eileen McCarthy, just a member of the public.
Not just a member of the public, a very proud member of the public.
I know, but I'm here in that function.
Would you mind passing it to someone else, Eileen?
I will pass it to, I'm sorry, I set an alarm for you guys, to Ashton Romer.
Hi, thanks, Eileen. My name is Ashton. I'm also just a member of the public. Looking forward to being here in conversation with you all. And I will pass to Santiago.
Hello. I'm also a member of the public. Very interested in the topics tonight.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And I think we've got any other council members, any other government folk? Okay, yeah, so then maybe what we can do from here is pass it on to outside. So I see Adrian, would you mind just introducing yourself?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm Adrian. I'm a member of the public. I've gotten introduced to the group because I was having concerns about people riding scooters and bicycles and things on the sidewalks. And so I was introduced to the group by some people I know that work for DC political politicians. And I'm just sort of here just trying to see what kind of input I can give and what kind of information I can provide. I'm a civil rights attorney with the federal government. That's my regular job, but this was just something that interested in me.
Great. Welcome, Adrian.
Yeah, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So I think we've got Sue and Ola left, if I'm not mistaken.
Hi, I'm Ola. Just a disability advocate here in the DC metro area, living in Prince George's County. I'm a disabled woman who's faced many issues with transportation in this area.
Welcome, welcome, Ola. And Sue.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sue, and I am a DC resident. I live extraordinarily close, just a couple of blocks away to the 11th Street 695 intersection. So it is one that I frequent and am always extraordinarily scared when I cross. And so that's a really important intersection for me. And so I wanted to be able to share my input on that in this call. So thanks for having me.
Great. And I think that's all of our public members. So the two items that we have to address today are pedestrian safety concerns with the 695 highway widening project. Also the addition of the 11th Street dual left turn lane as well. Oh, I do see someone else. Is this our DDOT friend, Mr. Smith at JMT? I think you may be on mute.
Sorry about that. But yes, I'm working with DDOT. There are other DDOT, should be other DDOT members on this call also. My name's Jay Smith. I work for Johnson, Murmuray and Thompson. We're an engineering firm that's doing the design for the project.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. Oh, and then I see V Trickle. Is that a DDOT person? V Trickle. Oh, V Trickle has left.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Rashali. Yes, she's with DDOT. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so the main, the two things that we'd like to discuss today. So one, so pedestrian safety concerns, again, with the highway widening project at 695, also dual left turn lanes. And we've got one more person, Max Ebert, and then we can go ahead and turn it over to DDOT.
Hi, sorry. Are we just introducing ourselves, or?
Yeah, we're just saying hello and yeah, welcome.
Hi there. My name is Max Ewert. I'm an ANC commissioner in ANC 1A, which is like Columbia Heights area. This is I've been on this meeting a couple times, but first time in a while. Nice to see you guys. I'm cooking dinner, so I'm going to keep my camera off.
Great, thanks so much, Max, and welcome. And yeah, let's go ahead and turn it over to DDOT.
Yeah, I was hoping Ravi was going to be joining us. I'm just sending him an email just in case.
Yeah, we've had a lot of trouble getting in touch with this particular team. It's kind of abnormal for DDOT, and I'm not sure why. We are a mayoral task force, an all-volunteer mayoral task force focused on the voices of disability, of folks with disabilities in the district, and it is something that we definitely want to make sure that our voices are heard. So we do expect to hear from our folks at DDOT.
Hey, Vishali, would you like me to go ahead with the presentation? You're on mute, by the way. Vishali, you're on mute. Is it okay to go ahead with the presentation?
I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised at DDOT right now. Usually, you know, they're pretty responsive, and this is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've been working with them for many years, and they are very responsive.
This was a pattern, an unfortunate pattern with this particular project, though. We've had a lot of trouble getting them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll address that tonight. I guess I'll go ahead with the presentation.
Yep.
And let's see, I got to share my screen. So hold on while I do that. All right. I assume you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
we
I
can.
can see.
Good. Okay. Well, this I'm going to run through a presentation that this was also presented to ANC 6B, and we've updated a little bit based on what's been going on with the project. So this presentation is about the 11th Street I-695 project. And it's a multimodal improvement project to add bike and pedestrian improvements and safety improvements for ramp D4, as well as 295, which you might not be as much interested in, but we'll talk about it. This is a history of the project. So you were saying about DDOT, but they have been very proactive in getting involvement in the community, presenting multiple times to 6B and 8B ANCs, working with Councilman Allen to address any concerns that he might have, incorporated, some of the feedback we've got, excuse me, from the community into the design. We've got it up. We developed the 30% design last year. And then most recently, we addressed some comments from ANC 6B and and then we're presenting obviously tonight to the MAAC. The 30, like I say, 30% design has been submitted. The 65% design is under development in the what we call the milestone process. So the main goal of this project is to implement roadway, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements in an urban environment. So it's a multimodal project. Safety is the #1 consideration, in line with Vision Zero and Move DC goals. This just shows an overview of the projects, and we're going to talk about 3 improvements that are part of 11th Street, and then we're also going to talk about one briefly that's on the other side of the river. The project mainly is an improvement along 11th Street. The first one here is ramp D4. So ramp D4, there was an issue with rear end collisions at the entrance there from 695. There's also driver confusion and a lot of what we call weave issues, where people are trying to change lanes to get to their destination ultimately when they get to the intersection. So the purpose of this improvement is to improve that, give people more time to make decisions. We're going to provide a warning beacon for the stopping condition. Excuse me. We're going to provide vehicle queuing space so that vehicles aren't queuing up on 695. There'll be more space for them to store on the ramp. And we're also incorporating new bike facilities and new latest traffic signal technology also.
So the main, just to start here, kind of the main problem that this is trying to solve is there's a queuing problem. There are too many people that are trying to get off at this particular exit. Is that the answer?
That's one, you could put it that way, but basically what happens is the vehicles queue back onto 695, right? Because they're trying to get off and there's not enough space for them to store in the area of the ramp. So they queue back onto 695, and there have been I think 14 or so rear ender type accidents in a 3-year period for that area. I think 7 of which I think had personal injuries. So
But
the
so
safety
were there
improvement.
other things that were there other things that were explored? So basically, we want to just kind of, let's just back up and kind of give you the history of this particular.
Well, could I?
One of the
I
no,
was wondering
not
if I
yet.
could go through the presentation, and then we could ask questions, or would you rather just stop here?
Rather just stop here. So
Okay.
yeah, so our group is focused on the safety and mobility of folks with disabilities, and we know that folks with disabilities are significantly less likely to have a car, actually twice as likely to not have a car. And what we're concerned about, and maybe we can just start off with this before we kind of dive into some of the specifics. I do see some folks have come in. I do want to state that I'm pretty disappointed that this is being run by a contractor and not DDOT themselves. So kind of whoever just came in late, this is, we are a mayoral task force focused on the voices of the disabled. You're presenting a highway widening project, and this is going to increase the crossing distance for pedestrians, and we are among the most vulnerable folks in the district. And I wanted to start there because this is the first time we've been trying to engage with DDOT for quite some time, and this is a really poor start. So I just want to start there. But and just to kind of level set, the purpose of this project was to increase capacity through an intersection, vehicular capacity through an
That's
intersection.
not the case. This is a safety improvement project. It's not the purpose to increase capacity. The purpose of this project is to improve safety. It's a multimodal project that incorporates bicycle safety, pedestrian safety, and vehicular safety. So it's incorrect to say that it's a project to increase capacity.
So what is the budget for this particular project?
Oh, geez. I'll be honest with you. I don't remember what the
one stat
estimated
that
cost was.
I would like to know from DDOT. I know there's some folks that have joined from DDOT. Thank you for joining, albeit late. But maybe the DDOT folks would care to enlighten us as to what the budget for this project is and what percentage of the project is going to be spent on vehicle-only lanes.
Well, you can look at the ramp configuration. You can see there's a small amount of widening to add this lane to the ramp D4. There's also the bike improvements, a protected bike lane along the entire 11th Street project.
Right, which is kind of why I want to get.
And there are also bike signals at each intersection, and we're improving the crossings at each one, the pedestrian and bike crossings. And we're also new signing, pavement marking, lighting improvements. So, it's a project that addresses safety for all modes.
Right. So let's start with the budget, though. It looks like there's a DDOT person here. Is the DDOT person here?
I don't think we could give you a percentage.
Or what do we even know?
We don't estimate that.
What is the budget? It's a pretty straightforward.
If you wait 1 minute, I have to pull the estimate up out of my computer. But
so just for folks in the public, kind of the thing that kind of worries me as someone with a disability is that this takes an already dangerous intersection and makes it even longer for people with disabilities to cross. So basically increasing the crossing distance at a highway exit by 33%.
Well, let me just mention some of the improvements that we're doing at the intersection to address pedestrians. First of all, we're incorporating no turn on red at all legs of this intersection.
Yep, that's the council mandate. So I don't think you don't get a cookie for following the law. But go ahead.
On the opposite side, on the Southwest Boulevard side, we're adding a bump out, and this reduces the crossing distance by 1/3, and also creates a situation where the driver has to move slower to make the turn. So making that a safer crossing on that side.
So
We're
why
also,
is that? That crossing? Why is that a rounded corner rather than a sharp corner?
that is a bulb out. Like I say, the bulb out, the purpose of the bulb out is twofold. One, to increase the distance of the turning vehicle, right, to slow it down. And secondly, to reduce the crossing distance across the ramp.
Right, but there's a rounded corner that's being shown, and rounded corners allow cars to go faster. So why isn't that a sharp corner?
Well, we also have to take into consideration the type of vehicles that are turning, so we don't have vehicles running over the sidewalk. So it's based on the DDOT Design and Engineering Manual to allow certain types of vehicles to make that turn. So if I could just finish, the also on the side where the ramp is, ramp D4, we're also incorporating new wider crosswalks and a bike, bike markings, and that results in a longer crossing time. And then we're also incorporating new accessible pedestrian signals, which have the audible signals for sight impaired, and we also have the incorporating a leading pedestrian interval. So we are incorporating safety improvements for the pedestrian, even though there is an additional lane there. There'll be a longer crossing time.
How will the pedestrian signals be timed, or how will those signals be timed exactly?
There, as we proceed with the design, there's models that our traffic engineers develop to come up with the times for all the signal phases, pedestrian phases, etc.
Or do those models increase? Do those models incorporate the length of time someone who is in a wheelchair or someone who has a visual disability requires to take across the street?
What we normally use for design is a federal highway criteria, which is a crossing time of 3.5 feet per second.
Have you ever been in a wheelchair traversing this particular intersection?
I have not. Like I say, I mean, we have to, when we do these designs, we have to follow, some kind of standards that are developed with these considerations in mind. So, we can certainly, the traffic engineers can certainly consider a longer time, and we can look at that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm not even sure who the traffic engineer we should even be talking to is, because we've been trying to get in touch with this traffic engineer for 3 months, no answer. And they're not even the ones presenting right now.
Well, I often present projects for DDOT on many projects. We do this a lot, so it's not unusual. We're an extension of their staff, essentially. So we work hand in hand together.
So how do we actually show, because this is a very unfortunate trend in the city where engineers often don't even live in the District of Columbia, and
that makes no difference, sir. I'm sorry, I don't appreciate that comment.
We're trying to figure out, because we're paying folks to come and do designs, and this is a design that makes us less safe, and they are not even coming to stand by their design. And that is a problem.
Well, this design has been, like I mentioned before, it's been presented. There was a FEI study done. As part of that, we're required to present to the public. This goes back 4 years of presenting to the public. So there's been, the design has been studied, not by us, but by DDOT, and it has been presented to the public and it's been discussed, and so it has been shared. You know, and DDOT is always happy to take input for the design.
We haven't had, I still don't even hear a single person from DDOT on this project. And I don't know, like, is this person here?
I can't see who's on the right now, but
let me just reiterate, we are a mayoral task force that focuses on the voice of the disability community in this city. We live here, we pay taxes here, and this is our neighborhood where we, like in all of these major capital improvement projects that are multi-million-dollar projects, we expect to hear from the people who we pay to do this stuff. And this is not a joke. I'm not sure, like, is there, I'm flabbergasted as to why there's still not a DDOT person. We've got
there are multiple DDOT persons actually.
Yeah, those DDOT folks are from the equity and disability side, which is wonderful, and they've been responsive. So is the active transportation branch, but the traffic engineering branch, I'm flabbergasted as to why there's not even a word from them.
Go ahead, Ravi. Ravi was speaking. Would you go ahead, Ravi?
Ravi, are you on mute? Because we don't hear you.
Ravi, I hear you. Are you on the Zoom call, Ravi?
Yes, he's on the Zoom. His name appears below.
Okay, good. Okay. I could hear his voice. Ravi, could you repeat your question? Did you guys hear that response from Ravi?
No.
Yeah, I think he's speaking on Teams and not speaking on Zoom because I can't hear him. And I'm on the DDOT network and I can't hear him. So
Hey, Ravi, look at the latest email from Mr. Smith.
I mean, they're wonderful.
It has the Zoom link.
He has the Zoom link. It was in the Teams chat.
He might have went to the invite, which had a Teams link.
Yeah, he's been sent the Teams link.
It's yeah, look at the one from Zach Smith sent at 5:34, Robbie.
Sorry, folks, for people in the public. I know this is not the best use of your time.
Well, my name's Yvonne Thelwell. I actually work with Robbie, and I'm with IPMA. We do the project delivery for all the infrastructure projects, including this one. And there are several of us on the call. We are responsible for carrying out the design with this, and JMT is our consultant. And we do work closely, as he mentioned, and working on this project. And whenever we have a project, we have the reviews go through the various branches, through Vision Zero, through Move DC. We have them go through the traffic, the drainage, all the disciplines that are required for the project. So the bicycle group. So we do get input from all the different divisions and the different departments within the agency that are involved in the design. And as you were mentioning, I mean, after the last meeting, we did make some revisions based on the comments that we got to improve some of the safety. And that's, I guess, what we're presenting today is some of the improvements that we are making. And Robbie, if you have anything to add, I'll let you go ahead and speak.
I'd like to know what the question is.
Yes, so maybe the specific question that we wanted to address was how is the signal timing going to take into account people in wheelchairs and people who have visual and audio impairments, the signal timing specifically, given that you are increasing the crossing distance?
Sure. Jay, have we gotten to the point where we are doing the signal design at the moment?
Well, you weren't on the call when I originally answered the question. As I was mentioned before, when we get to the detailed signal design, we do a modeling to come up with all the phases of the signal. The crossing times are typically based on federal highway requirements for a minimum crossing time of 3.5 feet per second. So that's the basic criteria for the sale. We don't have the timings yet because we haven't done the modeling yet.
We brought this up with Director Lott at our meeting about the K Street Transitway, where it is very often the case that traffic engineers don't know what it's like to be either in a wheelchair or have a visual impairment or have a hearing impairment. And one of the suggestions that was made was that folks who are doing design work actually traverse the intersection that they want to change in a wheelchair with a cane and also with earplugs. Has that been done?
No, that has not been done, not to the best of my knowledge, though.
Are you planning on doing that?
We need to look at it to see what the requirements are, and then we will meet all the requirements, the federal requirements, the DC requirements, and we will meet all the requirements.
So we are expressing to DDOT that this is an unsafe intersection. And we are deeply concerned that the crossing distance time that you use as a default, apparently of 3.5 seconds or 3.5 feet per second, is too fast. People in wheelchairs and people who have visual and audio disabilities cross slower. And we would like that to be taken into consideration, given that this is increasing the crossing distance and making an already dangerous intersection for folks outside of a car more dangerous. Is that received?
So I acknowledge your request. What we will do is that when first thing first is we will meet all the federal criteria, we will meet all the local criteria. And on top of it, we will look at the signal operations to see how much time we can do additional things to it. And we will definitely keep it into consideration if we are able to do it. But we will meet all the federal and local rules and guidelines.
So if we're able to do it, in what sense? I mean, your first slide said safety is the #1 priority.
Sure. And we do have to meet all the guidelines and rules, which we will meet. And we will also see if we can exceed those guidelines.
Great.
And we will make every attempt to exceed those guidelines.
Great. So why don't we move on to the dual turn lane?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said there.
Why don't we move on to the dual turn lane, the dual left turn lane on 11th?
Okay. Talking about here at ramp D3?
Right. So the introduction of a new turn lane. That's right. Oh, actually, there's also one at M, right? Yes, here's the introduction of a new dual turn lane on M. So why don't we start with the justification for this project?
I'm sorry, sir. What is the question?
So let's go back to so Vision Zero has outlined a case against dual left turn lanes. It's among the most dangerous type of intersection and dangerous type of movement where we have dual turn lanes. And DDOT has a Vision Zero effort to reduce the number of dual turn lanes in our road network. But I think it's on the next slide or maybe some future slide, but DDOT is proposing that we add one more lane to actually increase the number of dual turn lanes. And let's just actually back up to say that we know that dual turn lanes are particularly dangerous for pedestrians because of the double threat. So one person may stop, but another person might not. And that's something that I wanted to specifically start with the justification, because it seems very incongruous to me about, on one hand we say, hey, we want to reduce the number of dual turn lanes, and then on the other hand, here we are actually spending money to increase the number. So let's actually just start with the justification for increasing the number of dual left turn lanes.
Jay, do you want to answer that?
This is another improvement, safety improvement as part of this project. This is an exclusive turn phase, so there's nothing turning against, or there's no traffic moving against this phase of the signal. There's also, we're reducing the crossing distance at the intersection by putting in a bulb out. We're also adding an island in the center for pedestrian refuge. So there are other improvements at this intersection beyond the left turn phase.
But why do we have two? Why do we need a second dual turn? Why do we need a second lane for turning?
Based on the FEIS study, there was a need for additional turning movement there.
How is that calculated?
It's all based on traffic modeling that's done, and assessment of traffic operations at the intersection.
So on both of these, so if we can flip over to, so this is one dual turn lane, and then on the other turn lane, yes. So I think, no, and it's not that one. So on this one.
M Street?
Yes, so so if we look at a pedestrian that's trying to cross 11th Street, they have to cross how many lanes right now? They had to cross before, they have to cross a bike lane now, and they have to cross 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lanes. And the suggestion is that we add an additional one. Is that right?
That's correct.
So has that given anyone pause? Like, has anyone looked at like what the effect of that is on a pedestrian, in the sense of how long that will take? How long will someone in a wheelchair require to cross 9 lanes of traffic?
This again, the crossing times are based on what we developed from the model for pedestrian safety. So those are taken into account, the distance.
Right.
So the
we have
pedestrian the phase of the signal would take that into account.
Right. I guess I'm just kind of really struggling with the justification here of like, so we have some FEIS study that says we needed to increase our throughput capacity. I'm not sure. Does somebody actually have the background for this particular intersection?
I'd have to go back and look at the traffic study. I don't remember all of the aspects of why this was included, but it's to get the vehicles that need to turn in that direction and having the lane capacity to store those vehicles. So that's why there was an additional turn lane, the needed capacity to store the turning vehicles.
Yeah, can't they just queue in the back? I don't know. Like, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've been to this intersection many times, and I've seen close calls all of the time. And this notion, frankly, this notion that we're going to increase, we're going to spend more money so that more cars can get through a dangerous intersection for peds in a city that says that we care about accessibility and mobility and safety is just really, really does not make any sense to me. And just to have someone actually be able to justify how much we're actually spending on this thing, both in terms of money and also future pedestrian lives that are going to be at risk here.
Well, there's also a exclusive phase for this turning movement. So it's also a safety improvement so that there's no turning vehicles going against this movement. So when the vehicles are turning, all the other vehicles are stopped. So there'll be an exclusive phase for that. So it's also a safety improvement.
Sure. Yeah, I just,
Jay,
let's
if I may
go back
add,
to,
if I may add one more thing to it, by clearing the signals, by clearing the intersection for the cars, it also gives the opportunity to add extra time for the pedestrians too. Otherwise, the car signal times keeps increasing and it ends up with less time for the pedestrian to cross.
Good point, yeah.
So the sooner we clear the intersection with cars, there's more time for pedestrians.
right, but let me just actually just stop and rewind that. So we said the sooner we clear the pedestrians for the cars, there's more time for pedestrians. But even in that sentence structure, it's cars first, then pedestrians. What about the pedestrians? Why are pedestrians relegated to the back?
So the sentence structure is done to help pedestrians.
No. You said we need to clear the intersection for the cars, and then we look at pedestrians.
No, with the goal of giving more time to pedestrians. That's what we are saying. Our aim is to make it as safe for pedestrians as possible. And if we end up with a single lane, it will reduce the time for the pedestrians.
Because we have to get more, it takes longer to get that one single lane through that turning movement.
Or they could just wait longer. I don't. I mean, this is just like a. I mean, again, we seem to be prioritizing cars over pedestrians at this intersection. Again, just like the other intersection that we were doing before.
We're trying to come up with an intersection that operates for all modes. We have a bike signal, we have bike lanes, we have APS traffic pedestrian signals, and we have a phase of a left turn that's exclusive that'll be shorter than the current one, allowing more time for pedestrians and bikes. So you have to look at it in whole, not try to separate the pedestrian and vehicle, because it's a road, it's an intersection, and it has to work for everybody. And at the same time, you know, we're taking a project that really was designed during a previous time that maybe didn't incorporate some of the pedestrian and bicycle improvements that we're doing now. So the positive from this project is we now have a protected bike lane and we have better pedestrian facilities. So it's important that we recognize that there's improvements for the pedestrian and cyclist in this project also.
Right, but so this is one block from one of the premier parks that is going to be heavily pedestrianized in 2025, the 11th Street Bridge Park, just blocks. What impact, if any, have you considered on the pedestrian volumes that will be coming out of that park, and what safety impacts? Have you modeled that, the pedestrian volume increase?
Okay, down at O Street, and we're still working on the design. We're going to be tying together the trails that come from the park, from the river park, and also from the bridge. So we've met with these people, and we're coordinating those efforts, and the design is going to address the, connecting these facilities. And that's one of the things this bike facility does along 11th Street. It connects the 11th Street Bridge and the Anacostia Trail to the rest of the city to the north, and the bike trail network up there.
So that's nice. But what about the people? What about the pedestrian volumes, the increase in pedestrian volumes? So comparing the new increase in pedestrian volumes, do you have an estimate of the new pedestrian volume?
I do not. I do
Does
not.
anybody at
And
DDOT?
I don't know if there was been a pedestrian count or pedestrian projections done, but the design of any pedestrian facilities would address the safety of any pedestrian that would be crossing here.
So what I'm trying to understand is, you have vehicle counts, right? I'm sure you've done at least one vehicular kind of maintenance of traffic, or whatever the name is. You've done vehicle counts, but I've yet to actually hear anything about pedestrian counts or folks with disabilities. What are their counts? And even whether they're even going to be taken into account during crossing time. Like, this is not okay. Yeah, I just.
If I could make one comment.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
I was going to say, if I can make one comment, is that when we're dealing with pedestrians crossing traffic, we're not limited to one person at a time. We can have 4 or 5 people crossing the street at the same time, unlike vehicles where you're limited, where you have just one following another. So it's a much different way of looking at the traffic.
Sure, but also kind of the.
I think we lost.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yeah. So it's also how.
There you go. I'm sorry, we lost you for a while. I think.
Yeah, but it's also how often people are coming to the intersection, right? It's the arrival rate.
That's another reason why we don't want to. Why we'd rather have it 2 lanes turning to speed up the cars going through, and not having a longer turn to get all the traffic through the intersection. If we just have 1 turn lane, you're going to need twice as much time to get everybody through the intersection, and that's a longer wait time. If you can have 2 lanes turning at once, right, it's a shorter wait time for the pedestrians who are waiting.
Yeah, I do want to highlight one member of the community, an ANC commissioner. This is pretty telling of DDOT's priorities. So again, like, I want to highlight here, like, we are trying to optimize vehicle flow. It doesn't say, so what's implicit in your statement here is that we need to get people through this intersection, that they need to make it through just one stop cycle. We need to get them through in one cycle. They can wait multiple cycles if they need to. That's not a constraint. If safety is really the #1 priority, that should be the constraint.
One is not exclusive of the other.
It is, in fact.
It is not.
The longer, so the less you actually prioritize pedestrians in the sense that you're not even modeling how many people actually come, the arrival rate of pedestrians. We don't even know what that number is. We haven't even looked at we're using 3.5 seconds for 3.5 feet per second, which we know actually there's been a study apparently that shows that people in wheelchairs or folks with disabilities otherwise move significantly slower than that. Yes, it is. This is a trade-off, and you have been making the trade-off against people with disabilities.
Again, we are meeting all the federal and the state requirements. Okay. And we will exceed whenever possible.
Yeah, it's again, it's whenever possible. Is that say this is not just? I mean, there's one thing if you just say, hey, actually, we care. We're trying to maximize safety, subject to some sort of level of service constraint, which is actually the truth. Versus what you're saying is, hey, we're trying to maximize safety, subject to a level of service constraint.
We are saying that we meet all the requirements that we need to follow for the federal and the local laws.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to add, I am a walker. I walk way far than much more than I take the bus or even drive. I'm in my 60s, so I can certainly understand the need to accommodate all users. And I think that the design that we're having here, we're maximizing the traffic for both pedestrians to get through an intersection as well as vehicles. I don't think we're doing one over the other. We're maximizing the mobility for all users. If we were to back up the traffic so it goes onto the freeway, that doesn't win. Then you get accidents on the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help. So we want to keep pedestrians moving. You want to keep traffic moving. And that the design that we're working here is towards that goal.
Yeah, at least for me, Buddy, if you've got an opinion here, you can feel free to share it. It's just that I think like this is just I worry that we're going to spend millions of dollars making an already dangerous intersection even more unsafe.
Well, let me just jump in here. This is all new to me. I have not been in the southeast area of 11th and M Street in 15, 20 years. So all of this is like magic to me, but I'm amazed at how much is being put into that small area. For example, you will have a bike lane, you will have, 4 lanes of traffic, you will have pedestrians. Now, these pedestrians will be coming from where and going to where? I know the Navy Yard is in that area. So are we looking at pedestrians crossing with the M Street, getting to the automobiles or getting to a bus stop? What is the sort of scenario there pulling all of these entities together?
There's a new, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, Freddie, but there's a new park called the 11th Street Bridge Park. It's going to be a huge park, kind of the park that's crossing the Anacostia River that links Wards 6 and 8.
Okay,
it's like a massive draw, and they're spending a lot of time and consideration about thinking about how you can integrate folks with disabilities into the park, kind of through and through. And that's why I'm just like, I'm looking at this and it's just like, this is totally incoherent and like incongruous with that park that's about to go in. That's going to be otherwise like a really, really nice pedestrian facility.
Okay. All right. Continue.
But I appreciate it. But feel free, Buddy, feel free to jump in anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I think, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than like this, I mean, it would be nice to actually have a budget and know what that budget number is. It would be nice to know.
Mr. Bala, I do have the budget number. Sorry, the budget number is roughly about $6 million is the construction cost for this project.
Okay. And how much of that is spent on vehicular lanes?
We don't have that breakdown for that. It's a total project cost I'm giving. Everything is interconnected.
Any guess as to how long it's gonna?
No guesses. No guesses. No guesses.
Would it be fair to say that over 50% is vehicular?
You can make any statement you like. I don't have that number.
Okay.
In all honesty, you really can't separate it out like that because as they mentioned, I mean, when you talk about a traffic signal, do you split that 50-50? I mean, you can't really split the, you can't really split the, I mean, obviously a sidewalk is not as wide as a street. But that's, I mean, so you can't really break down the cost because it's all interconnected.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if adding that dual left turn lane, I'm not sure is like actually a pedestrian improvement, regardless of what you say. But I'm pretty sure we could allocate that 100% to vehicular traffic. But let's look at some of the other pedestrian improvement or quote unquote improvements. Do you at least have auditory signals in all of these intersections now?
That is correct. Yes.
In every intersection that you're touching in this capital project.
They'll all be APS signals. Yes. Good. That have audible signals. They have tactile, braille type information on the push button. So there's messages that are given out. I could show you a video if you'd like to see it of how the signal operates. So yes, all that will be incorporated.
Great. So I think I mentioned, like, we do want to see, we mentioned this director lot, and it was favorably received that on these capital projects, we want to see traffic engineers in wheelchairs, or at least I'll speak for myself. And I think, no, this was actually an idea that Helen brought up, I think. I'll speak for the entire council. We want to see traffic engineers go through every one of these intersections in a wheelchair, in a blindfold, and also with earplugs. That is, for a $6 million project, I think that's a small ask. So we brought that up to the director. That was favorably received. So I just want to ask for a commitment. Can we get the people on this call to make a commitment to do that?
At this time, we cannot commit to it, sir. We need to have internal discussions.
You need a wheelchair? I can get you a wheelchair.
No,
I'm serious.
that is not what I'm saying.
I can go and get you, and I can personally deliver it
Bala, we need to, this is the first time I heard from you what Director Lott had agreed to.
But this may be a fun activity. I mean, look at it from that perspective. I think what I'm hearing is a rejection of that activity. I'm not sure what it's based upon, but look at it as a fun activity to test that out, to see what it feels like being in a wheelchair crossing the street. I think it would be a great activity.
Thank you for your suggestion, sir.
Yeah, this is a 10-minute walk from DDOT headquarters. I mean, we can meet you there if you want. We can deliver the wheelchair. We can bring a blindfold.
Chairperson?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Nana. I'm sorry, I'm actually on Zach's computer. I know that this was mentioned at the meeting with the director, but I would also like for us to keep in mind that we also don't necessarily know the capabilities or abilities of the specific engineers. So to make that promise and you don't know if someone has an accommodation or some other type of mobility challenge, I don't think we can say that every single traffic engineer is going to do that. So I just want to point that out, that I think we're kind of missing part of the point here. I understand what you're trying to get to, that if you don't experience what other individuals are going through that intersection, you may be missing a particular point. However, I also think it's important to remember that you also don't know the capabilities of all of the engineers. So the director has mention that at the meeting that I was present at. And so I will make sure that the information is relayed back, not only to the chief engineer, but also to the director's office, and we'll see what we can do, but that promise can't be made right now.
Sure. Understood. Yes, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
It is something that it is something that we want to see. I think, like, we want to see people who work, if they don't live here, and I don't know if the folks are on this call who are working on this project live in the city or not. If you don't live here, you really need to experience this yourself.
I do live here, and as I mentioned, I'm in my 60s. I have arthritis. I've had a knee replacement, and I walk all the streets. So I am I can certainly understand the issue.
Exactly, and I also understand the concern, but you also have to remember that you have children crossing, and their legs are not as long as adults, and so there's all types of different things you have to consider. You know, when you're looking at the traffic pattern and everything else. I'm just simply saying to make the engineers make that promise right now, and all of them, I think they're being honest and saying we can't make that promise. That's not to say that it won't be done, but I think we can work together to see what can be done. But I understand them not making that promise.
Can we get one person?
Well, now what I'm not going to do is go back and forth with you on this. I will make sure that what you've asked for and what the director indicated is relayed, and we can try to schedule something. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know how many people it's going to be, but I will make sure that your sentiment is conveyed again.
Good. Yeah, fair enough. That's fair enough.
Great, thank you. Okay, all right. Well, I think so. Buddy, do you have any more? Do you have any more questions?
No, that's it for me.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, all right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share? We're about to move on.
Just the final slide here, I guess, which kind of emphasizes the improvements we're doing for pedestrian and bicycle safety as part of the project, and the technology we're incorporating to make it as safe as we possibly can, using the latest technology, the latest in sign and pavement marking technology, the latest in traffic signals. We're trying to make this as safe as we possibly can using the best available technology. And as you well know, what the street is like now, and we're taking it and making it better. It's going to have bike facilities. It's going to have better pedestrian facilities. So it's an improvement for safety for everyone.
Great. Well, thank you, especially to the folks who came on time. Yeah, we'll move on.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Oh, we've got a raised hand. I'm sorry. Is there somebody with a hand raised? Santiago, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the budget. So I heard Ravi say that it was $6 million for construction. I was wondering if that included the planning budget, or if that was a separate, and if so, what the planning budget is for the project.
Sorry, the planning budget, which includes the design, is $1 million.
So 7 million total, 1 million design,
Yeah.
6 million construction. Okay.
Yeah. And the construction budget is just estimated. As we further refine the design, that estimate may change. It could go up or it could go down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions from the public? I'm sorry, I skipped it before. Oh yes, a comment from Eileen. Please make sure it's a manual wheelchair, because not everyone is able to afford a wheelchair that has a motor.
And Carthage, if I can just mention here, I'm happy to see that you have the leading pedestrian interval incorporated. Yes. Yeah, I think that's great. Those should be at every intersection in the city.
I have a quick question. I'm trying to figure out how y'all are going to enforce the no turn on reds. I know that this is a district-wide kind of legislated priority. And I just, can't say I have a whole lot of faith in the ability to actually enforce it. I'd have some concerns given that a lot of folks don't actually respect it. And I also know that there's a school a block away from this intersection. And so I'm concerned about the safety of kiddos as they cross the schools at between 10th and 11th and G and I. So quite close to where this is. And of course there's the park on the other side of it. So I'm just, do you have any ideas for, are you going to install ATEs to ensure that you can catch folks who run red lights, or have anyone stationed there to help with any kids who might be crossing in the mornings on their way to school, or in the afternoons on their way out of school, so that they have safe passage?
So excellent question. We have been thinking about ATEs, and we are going to be in discussion with the ATE team to install them. As you know, DC is expanding the ATE program, and we will look for all the opportunities to utilize as many cameras as possible. But we can't commit to that this is going to be done as part of this project, but we are having discussions with the ATE team.
And any thoughts on the school close by and how to make sure that safe routes to school is maintained?
There is a team at DDOT that looks at the safe route to school, and we coordinate with them. Our plans are reviewed by all the teams at DDOT so that all the activities, AT cameras, everything gets coordinated together.
Have you engaged with the school at all?
No, we have not engaged with the school. We are engaged with the ANCs for many, many meetings.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else from the public? Any questions at all before we move on? Great, thank you. So why don't we go ahead and move on. Great, okay, so so I'd like to share some updates on the MAAC itself. So a couple exciting things that I'd like to share. One, we've got a website that is back up at maacdc.org. Here's the maacdc.org. It's still being populated. So right now we've got a lot of the old stuff. Who we are is all of this, for example, is all some of this is outdated, but I'm going to be slowly updating this with our kind of meeting minutes and also the recordings of the meetings and updates. And then we've got I know, Buddy, you had worked on the Georgetown study, so stuff about that will be in here. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, we'll just have kind of more stuff to come, but we're back up online, so you can tell people to go to maacdc.org, and hopefully we'll have more content and updated content soon. But we are back online. For the technical nerds out there, we're using HubSpot now, so we transitioned from Squarespace to HubSpot. So yeah. We've got that back up and running. We also have reclaimed our Twitter account, so we have our Accessible DC handle again. So one of our former members, Rob, who's fantastic, unfortunately had his old account locked, so we couldn't get back into here. But now we've gone through Twitter's process. And we've gone through DC's process in order to get his old account back. So now we've got our Twitter back up and running at Accessible DC. And so we'll have kind of meeting announcements and go out, et cetera. So so yeah, just FYI for folks, it's the handle is accessible DC. And yeah, so those are two things that I wanted to mention. The last thing that I wanted to mention was, and yes, we have a kind of our, so Helen is not here, I don't think. Is Helen not here, unfortunately? But yeah, we've got Helen, who's our treasurer, and I'll work with her on budget. But essentially, we've got an allocation of $10,000. We had $2,000 in legacy costs for an admin assistant in the past, but we have now an expense for the website in that transition. But now I can maintain it now that it's been transitioned, and then we've got other costs that are coming up, just the kind of small software expenses, and then also hoping that we can all get Braille business cards as well. So one's Bushira, who is taking her finals now. She's our new admin assistant. We'll be able to help out once she starting at the next meeting. So hopefully we'll have an update on that front. But yeah, we'll have business cards that we can use to engage with the public, and then yeah, any other kind of small scale initiatives that we've got about $8,000 to, or probably a little bit less than that, to use to kind of promote our goals of increasing transit and equity in the district for folks with disabilities. So the last thing that I wanted to mention was Kevin, yes, Kevin is here. Kevin, if you happen to be able to unmute, would you mind just giving a brief update on the roundtable? No worries if not. I can give you an update. I can give an update, but to back up, so we know last time we had talked a little bit about Vision Zero and specifically this problem that folks are there are reckless drivers in the city who operate their cars and kill people in their cars. That's happened. It happened most recently. There was a horrific crash where somebody was going at a very, very high speed on Rock Creek Park, and killed 3 people in the process, and they had $12,000 of fines. And last time we talked through a resolution about having a numerical target for DPW, Department of Public Works, to hit in terms of finding the most reckless drivers, so people with $1,000 in moving violations, and trying to find their cars and tow their cars. Because essentially kind of the analog was, we've got folks who are running red lights and going, very, very fast through our district, through a very urbanized center, and killing people. And we want to make sure that they're not able to do that anymore. So we brought that particular resolution, and kind of we went through that. There's a small tweak that we don't have Helen here, which is unfortunate, but there was a small tweak that we'd been working with the Pedestrian Advisory Council and the Bicycle Advisory Council as well, and they're advancing similar resolution. And there was a small tweak that was just focused on making some grammatical changes and specifically saying that we want to make sure that this is kind of focused on the most dangerous drivers, and we get them off the streets, and less about kind of this isn't about funding, and it's it's not about kind of collecting revenue for the city. This is about ensuring safety for the city. And that was a small tweak that one of the other councils wanted to make. And I thought that was pretty reasonable. Unfortunately, I don't think we can take action on it because Helen's not here, but I just wanted to mention that to Buddy.
Okay.
They wanted to make that small tweak of it's less about money and more about safety, which I thought was a totally fair statement.
Okay, sounds good.
So yeah, the other thing that Kevin had shared was this enforcement roundtable. So Councilmember Allen wants to convene the Bicycle Advisory Council and the Pedestrian Advisory Council, as well as other folks who have a stake in making our streets safer, specifically around enforcement. So we have these laws to keep us all safe. There's some people who are not following the law. How do we change the behavior of the people who are not following the law, specifically people who drive recklessly? And they sent over a series of questions. I'll put those in the chat. But essentially, those questions are all around enforcement. So one question is, for example, how do we utilize and balance the district's automated traffic enforcement? I'll put those in the chat. Automated traffic enforcement, or ATE systems administered by the District Department of Transportation with enforcement by the Metropolitan Police Department. So there are some, and I think this is like a kind of an important discussion to have, because one common, so there, as I see it, kind of there's a balance between, okay, we want to make sure that the worst drivers are not operating vehicles, or at least the worst drivers and people who are operating vehicles recklessly stop their behavior and just and either we take away their car or they change their behavior. But it's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard to enforce our laws without police. But we know that police have police encounters can and have gone horribly wrong. So we know that we've seen examples of police stops that have for kind of small violations that have escalated and people have gotten hurt or killed by the police. And we're trying to figure out, how do we balance, how do we get enforcement without the negatives of enforcement? And so that's one question. It's one, I think, just one general question of like, we've moved automated traffic enforcement cameras from Metropolitan Police Department to DDA. And that's one thing that takes this possibility of people being stopped by the police and potentially having an escalation occur with a human interaction. It takes away that possibility, which potentially makes people safer. But at the same time, that might not have the impact that we need it to have. For example, there are a lot of Maryland and Virginia drivers who don't pay the tickets at all, and they just, there's one Maryland driver who has $180,000 worth of worth of tickets.
Wow.
So how do we? So what is the right balance? And so that was one of the things. So so I wanted to maybe just open up with that question, and in fact, actually, I think we've got a little bit of time for folks in the public as well. So, Buddy, yeah, any thoughts on that particular question?
Well, maybe we could hire a company that would. What do you have? What is it that these companies that they get a fee for collecting funds from people who have not paid the government? Aren't there some companies that do that? I forgot the name of those companies. Debt collections.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, does anyone? This is a great question. Does anyone know whether So for people who don't pay fines, can we actually try to collect on the debt? Does anybody know that? That's a really interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are debt collecting companies who would actually collect your debt, and then you give them a percentage of the collection.
So this is interesting so barriers to enforcement. So there's another question that Kevin has, is barriers to enforcement against both DC and out-of-state drivers, including districts' efforts to establish reciprocity with Virginia and Maryland. Virginia and Maryland so far have not helped DC collect on DC fines. So it is a question, can we, that's an interesting idea. I think it's worth exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have thoughts on that? Yeah, so Kevin says the problem with ATEs is verifying the driver. So I think, so this is one thing that I've got, and Kevin, feel free to chime in here. So this is one thing that, I've thought a lot about this particular analog. Drivers or cars and guns both kill somewhere around 40,000 people each year.
Mm-hmm.
And a gun, if you own a gun, it's really incumbent on you to make sure that that gun is not being used in a way that can kill other people. And I think that an analog here is, hey, if you buy a car, that car can be used to kill other people. And if you give your keys out to someone else, they really should be operating that in a safe way. And it's really on you, just like if you keep your gun out on the sidewalk, or you let your cousin borrow your gun, you are going to be responsible when your cousin goes and kills someone. And in this case, if you let your cousin drive the car and your cousin goes 100 miles an hour, blowing a red light and kills a child, you should be responsible for that. And that's just my take. And I think here it's this, the burden should not be on the government to show that the burden shouldn't be on the government to show, hey, this is you are driving the car. It should be that you are not, someone should be saying, hey, you should not be driving the car. I was not driving the car and someone else, but still it's something that I think is kind of worth discussing. But that's my take of, right now we don't assign points on someone's license, for example, for ATE violations or camera violations. But I think it would be a fair thing, actually, because if you're the type of person who own, or if you own a car, you really want to make sure that the type of person that is operating your vehicle on your behalf is someone who can be trusted to not kill someone. Whether the district should assess points against the driver for citations issued by ATE system. I've got an opinion on that. I think I just shared it, but what about other folks? So Buddy, do you have a thought on this?
Now, exactly how would that operate? Give me a little scenario here.
So if you have a certain, and feel free, actually, we've got a small enough group that you can feel free to just jump in. You don't need to raise your hand, but here, the idea here is that right now, if you're pulled over speeding by a cop or a police officer, then that will be reported to both your insurance company and to the DMV. And if you get a certain number of points, and worse violations give you more points, then you will not be able to renew your license.
Okay. So, and that's like a 12. Is that from my memory from many years? That's 12 points on a driver's license. Is that right?
Yep. Okay. I think that's right.
Okay. Well, let me sort of throw something in. Maybe if it's 12 points for a driver, maybe the car owner could get, say, up to 24 points each time the automobile is involved in a traffic infraction, let's say it may be 1 point against the automobile and maybe, 3 points against the driver. And then,
That's very
okay.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
very interesting. So actually so your suggestion is keep 2 records,
Yes.
one record for the driver
Yes.
and one record for the vehicle. I've never thought about that. I
That's
like that a lot. I like that a lot. I'm gonna write that down. That's a really
Okay.
good idea.
All right.
Cool. Eileen, you had your hand up?
I did. I wanted just offer a couple of thoughts. One, just going back to the question of ATE versus in-person police. I think one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of our fatal crashes involve extremely high speeds. And the reality is that there are limits on what the police can do and what they should be doing. We don't necessarily want police to be chasing drivers who are going super fast. And it's hard to catch them otherwise, which means you need ATE to do that. I do have a recollection in the early days of ATE when it was managed by MPD that they actually did tell us that when they found somebody that was going super fast, they followed up and sent an officer in person to talk to them about their speeding. I don't think it went much further than having somebody show up and talk to them, but I thought it was interesting they were doing that. The other thought I'll offer, if I can, is that I'm not a data person, Karthik, like you and other people, but I got very curious about reckless driving cases before the criminal court. And I started reading cases a few years ago during COVID. One of the things that came clear to me was that, the police actually do arrest a lot of people. Reckless driving isn't all that common to charge for the reasons I gave before. But one of the things I saw was when the police arrest someone, they write an affidavit, and oftentimes they put the license plate in the affidavit. And when they did that, I would look up the license plate, and there were a lot of times where I saw huge ATE fines.
Yeah.
So one of my thoughts is, well, the police have arrested someone, they've left the car parked on the street. Why couldn't they coordinate with DPW to go get the car and just boot it? They know they had somebody who just committed an offense that's dangerous, and they have the grounds to boot it. Why not just go and boot it?
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting point because there's I remember someone had said something to, I'm forgetting this conversation, but basically it's that sometimes DPW, when they go out and do a parking enforcement, or they have a 311 request for parking enforcement, this car could be tow eligible, but the parking officer doesn't actually, that information is not relayed to the parking officer that this car is tow eligible. And
I've heard that too.
And I think that just this idea of data sharing, even within the agency, so that's just within the DPW, within agency data sharing, I think is important. But then what you're bringing up is sharing across agencies, so DPW to MPD, or I'm sorry, MPD back to DPW, or potentially vice versa. I think I remember also hearing something like MPD doesn't even know, or maybe maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I was just kind of going back to.
And I've heard too that they're restricted with the information they can get. My thought would be that if they arrest someone and they park the car in the street, they send DPW have a contact person. Yeah. MPD sends them an email or whatever and says, this license plate is parked on the street at this location. That person looks it up, sees if it's eligible, and then they tow. But I've also heard they don't have very many tow trucks. So
yeah, one question is, so I've noticed that for private property, so I live in a big condo building, and I know that a lot of people own parking spaces, and so we rent out our parking space, and when someone is there when someone is parked in that spot that's not a renter, there's a process for that person to be towed. So they have to get a DPW ticket. So we have to have a government ticket. But then it's not DPW that does the tow. It's some other private entity that does the tow. So it's interesting, or one question that I had was, okay, well, if if there's a process for towing off of private non-government tow trucks, towing off of private land, can there be non-government tow trucks off of streets if there's a DPW ticket, or if there's some sort of check mark to say, hey, from DPW, is this car ready to go? Okay, then go and take it.
So let me add, one of the other things I discovered in my little research project was that Secret Service and Park Police do a lot of arrests, especially in wards 2 and 3.
Yeah.
When they arrest, they have it towed. They always have the car towed by a company called A&A Towing. In fact, I was one of the things that drove me up a wall was there was one time they had A&A tow a car that had plenty of tickets on the license plate, but then it got released.
Wow. But basically what you're saying is there is already a government precedent for using a private tow operator. There's already, the federal government is already doing that. Why not have the state do it?
Yeah, I don't know why DC doesn't do it.
Yeah, because I have heard that DPW, one of the reasons that they said was they don't have enough tow trucks. Another reason they said at one point they didn't have a large enough impound lot. But now if we have a private operator be able to augment the capacity, that could really be a big deal. And I mean, honestly, I think that this is a linchpin to traffic safety because we have. Let's just take the Rock Creek Park example. 3 people are dead because one person decided that they wanted to drive recklessly. If that reckless driver hadn't had their car, or maybe had been scared straight, as it were, like they might have not killed those 3 people. So if we were to send a strong message by starting to impound cars much more aggressively, that could have like this kind of domino effect of getting to the average person. Even Maryland and Virginia drivers like, no, I don't want to mess around in DC because my car will get towed and I won't have a way home. So I'm just going to go and follow the speed limit and stop at red lights. I really think this is kind of a linchpin. So this is good. I'm taking these down. Another thing that Kevin asked, how the district can create a more equitable system of enforcement, including whether fines should be adjusted or waived in certain circumstances, including based on drivers' ability to pay, and what alternatives exist then to monetary penalties. So I had an idea on this front that I wanted to kind of get some feedback on, and that was so every license plate is associated with what's called a VIN number, vehicle identification number. That vehicle identification number can tell you the make, model, and year of a car. That make, model, and year of a car, there are services that if you give them make, model, and year of a car, they'll tell you how much that car is worth. And it's kind of a proxy for how much, a proxy for a driver's ability to pay. So, if we have $100 of a fine on someone who's driving a Maserati, they don't care about that $100. That's just pocket change. But if you've got a $100 fine on someone who's driving a really old car, and that could push them really, that could have a really, really detrimental effect on them. So my thought here is, hey, I know the data pipeline can work for something like this. Is instead of, can we adjust fines based on the value of the car? So basically have fines, really increase for people who have very expensive cars, and then for folks with much less valuable cars, their fines are much smaller. So that in that way, it's kind of it's having the intended effect of deterring, but without pushing someone into poverty, for example. That was one thought that I had, but I wanted to kind of share it with y'all.
Parth and I just dropped something in the chat. But one of models that has emerged to me as being really fascinating is Finland adjusts its fines based off of income levels. So, a billionaire gets $100,000 speeding ticket there. That's the level at which it would actually function as a deterrent.
Yep.
Interesting.
I actually and other members of the PAC suggested exactly this about 8 years ago in the first discussions of Vision Zero. We initially started with the concept of it's been used in the US, it's called day fining, where you essentially fine a person a certain amount based on what they earn in a day from their job. Anyway, it didn't go anywhere. Income is more difficult because a DC police officer wouldn't have, and we would not have access to Maryland and Virginia income tax, information. So we went with, what about vehicle value? And that seems to me, I think it's a great idea, Karthik. I mean, I thought of it a while ago and I've thought of it since. I think it's a great idea. If the person, is driving someone else's car and it's a rich car and they're a poor person, they can always, come back and say, hey, my income's not that high, and, sort of set it aside.
Yep, with some sort of appeal process or revision process. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Those are the questions that Kevin had. I think this is going to be a great roundtable. Tentatively slated for May 23rd at 12, I think. But I think, so Buddy and other folks it's going to be in roundtable format, so I'm not sure. So I don't think it's a kind of a hearing format. So I think it's just invited folks, but we've been invited. So I'll plan on representing us. I think we're kind of largely in sync that we want dangerous drivers off the road, but generally in an equitable way. Buddy, your idea of one separate tallies, one for the driver and one for the vehicle, I'll definitely be bringing up, as well as Eileen, your idea of having a DPW contact for after MPD arrests, and then also this kind of ANA towing for NPS and Secret Service. The fact that we already have precedent for it, and then also Eileen, your idea of having a revision process, so vehicle-based fine, but then a vehicle value-based fine, but then a revision process, or kind of revision/appeal process for folks whose income isn't reflected by the car. Maybe this is like a for-hire vehicle, like a black car driver or something. They have a really nice car, but they don't actually make that much money. So I like that. Cool. Any other thoughts? I think this is kind of a good step, and I'm excited that the council member is really kind of leaning into this, because I feel like there's not, most drivers are actually pretty safe. It's just the crazy ones that will kill people, and we need to get the crazy ones, we need to remove the people who are acting in an absurd way. We need to get their cars away from them, because they're not.
I think the crazy ones also have an effect on drivers who otherwise would be better.
That's also true. Yeah, for sure. It's a normalized behavior that is really, really unsafe.
Or it just scares them. It's like they're reacting to the threat to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Cool. So this was really great. I think any other, hopefully we'll have some more stuff for next month. I'm sorry, this meeting ending up, the first part of this meeting ended up being way more contentious than I had hoped, but I don't know. I think I just got a really bad feeling about just when people don't hear us and listen to us and ignore us for a while and then show up late to a meeting. Is just not it just really rubs me the wrong way.
Okay.
So
Oh, well.
anyway, but thanks so much for a great engagement and a great meeting.
Okay.
I'll send out details of the roundtable.
Okay, great.
And yeah, so if you can join, that'd be great. And
Okay.
and then next month second Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. and we'll go from there. Thanks so much thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks for your leadership.
Okay, thanks so much, buddy.
All right, thank you. All right, bye.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yep. Take care.
All right, take care, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, Adrian. Take care.